What if the reason you keep making the same mistakes, the same wrong choices, the same painful decisions, is not because you are weak, not because you are unlucky, not because life is unfair to you, but simply because nobody ever taught you how to actually think? What if your mind right now is like a storm, full of noise, full of fear, full of opinions that are not even yours, and somewhere beneath all of that chaos, there is a version of you that is calm, sharp, unshakable, and completely clear? What if I told you that ancient warriors, men who trained their minds and bodies in the most brutal conditions on earth, discovered a way of thinking so powerful that it could turn confusion into clarity in seconds, turn panic into purpose, turn a moment of weakness into a decision that changes your entire life? That knowledge exists. It has existed for centuries inside the walls of one of the most disciplined traditions the world has ever known. And today, right here, I am going to give it to you, not as philosophy, not as theory, but as something you can use the moment this video ends. Stay with me. Every single word from this point forward was meant to find you today. What if the greatest battle you will ever fight in your entire life is not happening outside of you, not in your workplace, not in your relationships, not in the world around you, but right here, inside the 6 inches between your two ears, inside the battlefield that is your own mind, the place where your future is either built with clarity or destroyed with confusion, where your greatest decisions are either born from wisdom or murdered by noise. Most people walk through their entire lives never questioning the quality of their own thinking. They react, they respond, they jump from emotion to emotion like a person jumping from stone to stone across a river, never stopping, never looking down, never asking themselves, wait, where exactly am I going? And is this truly the direction I have chosen, or simply the direction my unexamined mind is dragging me toward without my permission? The ancient masters who walked the stone floors of Shaolin understood something that the modern world has almost completely forgotten. They understood that before you can master anything in this world, before you can master a skill, a relationship, a business, a craft, a life, you must first master the instrument through which you experience all of it. You must master your mind. And mastering the mind does not mean silencing it. It does not mean forcing it into submission or filling it with positive affirmations that you do not truly believe. Mastering the mind means understanding it so deeply, so honestly, so completely that it can no longer deceive you. And believe me, your untrained mind deceives you every single day. Think about the last terrible decision you made. Think about it honestly. Was it truly made from a place of calm awareness? Was it made after careful reflection, after genuine stillness, after looking at the situation from every angle with clean, unbiased eyes? Or was it made from fear, from anger, from the desperate need to be right, from the exhausting hunger for approval? From an old wound that never healed properly, that was screaming so loudly inside you that you mistook its voice, for your own wisdom, for your own truth. This is what the masters call clouded perception, and it is the single greatest enemy of clear thinking that exists in any human being alive on this planet today. Imagine a lake, a perfectly beautiful, perfectly deep lake. When that lake is still, when there is no wind, no disturbance, no stone thrown into its surface, you can look into it and see all the way to the bottom. You can see every rock, every root, every truth that lives beneath the surface. The reflection on top is perfect. Everything is clear. But now take that same lake and throw 1,000 stones into it at once. Add wind, add rain, add chaos. What happens? The water becomes dark, the bottom disappears, the reflection becomes distorted. You cannot see anything, you cannot trust what you are seeing, and every decision you try to make while looking into that disturbed water will be a distorted decision, built on a distorted reality, leading you toward a distorted life. Your mind is that lake. And most people spend their entire lives throwing stones into their own water without ever understanding why they cannot see clearly. The first stone is noise. We live in a world that has declared war on silence. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning to the moment you finally surrender to sleep at night, something is demanding your attention. A notification, a headline, an opinion, a comparison, a fear disguised as news, a doubt disguised as information. And you absorb all of it, every single piece of it, without filtering, without questioning, without ever stopping to ask, is this truth or is this simply loud? Because loudness and truth are not the same thing. They have never been the same thing. But when you have never been taught the difference, when your mind has never been trained to sit in silence long enough to hear its own voice, you will always mistake volume for wisdom. You will always follow the loudest thing in the room, even when it is leading you directly away from everything you actually want. The masters knew this. This is why silence was not a punishment in that tradition. It was a practice. It was a discipline. It was treated as one of the most powerful tools available to a human being. Because in silence, something remarkable happens. The stones stop being thrown, the wind settles, the water becomes still, and suddenly you can see again, you can think again, not reactively, not emotionally, not from the accumulated noise of 10,000 voices that are not yours, but from the deep, quiet, unshakable place within you that already knows the answer, that has always known the answer, but could never be heard above the chaos you were living inside. So the first practice, and I want you to understand this not as advice but as a discipline, as a non-negotiable commitment to yourself, is to create silence deliberately, every single day. Not for an hour, not for 30 minutes, even 5 minutes. 5 minutes of genuine, uninterrupted silence where you sit with yourself, where you breathe, where you allow the water of your mind to become still. Do this consistently, and you will begin to notice something that will shock you. You will begin to notice how many of the decisions you were about to make were not actually your decisions. How many of the fears you were carrying were not actually your fears. How many of the beliefs you were living by were handed to you by someone else, someone who was themselves living by beliefs handed to them by someone else, going back so far that nobody in that entire chain ever actually stopped to ask, is this true? Now let us talk about the second stone. And this one is more dangerous, more hidden, more destructive than noise, because it wears a very convincing disguise. This stone is called emotion, mistaken for intuition. Here is what most people do not understand. Emotion and intuition are not the same thing. They feel similar. They arrive quickly. They feel urgent. They feel important. But they come from completely different places, and they lead you to completely different destinations. Emotion comes from your past. It comes from your wounds, your conditioning, your accumulated experiences of pain and disappointment and fear. When you feel emotionally triggered, you are not responding to the present moment. You are responding to a memory. You are responding to the last time something felt like this, the last time someone said something like this, the last time a situation looked like this. And your mind, trying to protect you, fires off the same response it fired off then, even if that response is completely inappropriate now, even if that response will destroy something beautiful in your present because it is desperately trying to protect you from something that already happened in your past. Intuition, on the other hand, is something different entirely. True intuition is calm. It does not scream at you. It does not grip your chest. It does not make your hands shake or your heart race. True intuition is quiet and steady and clear. It is the voice that speaks once, gently, without desperation, without attachment to whether you listen or not. It simply tells you the truth and then waits. The tragedy is that most people have never been still enough to hear it. They are so busy following the screaming voice of emotional reaction that the quiet voice of genuine wisdom never gets a chance to be heard. The masters understood the difference not through intellectual study, but through embodied practice. When you train your body with discipline, when you push it, when you challenge it, when you hold it in discomfort without running away, when you breathe through the pain instead of collapsing under it, you are training the same muscle that makes the difference between reacting and responding, between being a slave to your emotions and being a master of your awareness. The body and the mind are not separate, they are one instrument. And every time you choose discipline in your body, you are building the capacity for discipline in your mind. This is why the ancient practice was never just physical. It was never about how hard you could hit or how far you could kick or how many times you could repeat a technique without fatigue. It was about what happened inside the practitioner during that training. It was about the moment when the body wanted to quit and the mind said, "Not yet." Not because of stubbornness, not because of ego, but because somewhere in that choice, that single quiet choice to continue, something was being forged. Something in the character of that person was being made stronger, cleaner, more honest, more capable of standing still in the middle of a storm. And that capacity, that ability to stand still in the middle of a storm, is exactly what clear thinking requires. Because life will storm. It has already stormed. It will storm again. Someone will betray you. Something you worked hard for will fall apart. A door you needed to open will close. And in that moment, in the exact moment when everything in you is screaming, panicking, demanding that you do something, say something, decide something immediately, the most powerful thing you can possibly do is nothing. Not forever, but for long enough to breathe, long enough to let the initial wave of emotion move through you without making a decision inside it, long enough to find the still point inside the storm. Because in that still point, and the masters were absolutely certain of this,